a project between FAO and Muller. And in this context, I would thank the FAO Egypt and the Italian cooperation to their support for establishing this important unit. At the beginning of the activities of this project, we, by using problem tree analysis, we found that we have a lot of problems we have a lot of problems make us need a monitoring and evaluation unit. We have a lack of accurate food loss and waste data due to the different concept of the waste among the stakeholders, and also we have capacity for reducing food loss and waste, and there are a lot of individual and separate efforts to food loss and waste reduction, but there is no an entity to collect these efforts, or so there are absence of data and information exchange. Also, we have poor linkage and coordination between stakeholders among the value chain. I don't want to repeat the effects of the current situation of high rates of food loss and waste among the value chain. My colleague Jennifer mentioned too. So at the end, we have negative impact on food security and in economic and social and environmental. So the current situation we can summarize at a high rate of food loss and waste along the value chain, different concepts and separate efforts. Also, I would mention that the Sustainable Agricultural Development Strategy toward 2030, one of the main objectives, achieving high rates of food security in agricultural commodities, which reducing food loss and waste can be an important tool to achieve this goal. So our goal under this project to establish an entity to be a platform for different stakeholders and efforts with a common understanding towards food loss and waste reduction in agricultural products in Egypt. And also this unit will be proposed to help decision makers to develop policy and strategy programs toward food loss and waste reduction. Our vision is to be a central body to improve a collection, transparency, analysis, availability, and dissemination of data on food loss and waste at all the value chain of products, and to provide a platform for all stakeholders to work together to coordinate their goals to reduce the food loss and waste. Our mission is catalyzing and promoting a common understanding of a natural and scope of food loss and waste through adopting and improved food assessment methodology, and establishing a national partnership with other stakeholders like private sector organizations and communities toward reducing food loss and waste and achieving our goal to strengthen food security. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dalia. So after Eduardo's presentation and then the FAO, is there? Yeah. Okay. So now we're moving to our third speaker. So the third speaker is Amal. And Amal is the senior researcher at IFPRI. Anyways, I hope you can hear me. So our third speaker is from IFPRI as well. She is currently involved in the Egyptian Food Safety Information Center. It's not working. Yeah, let me. Is it working? Okay. Yeah, we'll give it a third try. I'm unable to introduce you, Amal. So again, our third speaker is Amal. She's the senior researcher at ARC. She's currently involved in the Egyptian Food Safety Information Center. So she's in the field of training programs actually to implement food safety principles in factories and food industry companies in Egypt. So the floor is yours, Aman.
Hello everybody, I'm Amal from Food Technology Research Institute, Agricultural Research Center. First of all, I'd like to express my deepest thanks for the organizing committee for inviting me to present my topic today. My topic today is about the role of Agricultural Research Center and the Ministry of Agriculture in addressing food losses and waste in Egypt. The outlines of the presentation will answering the following questions. Actually, we have 3 questions must be answered at the end of the presentation. How does food losses and waste fit into Egypt's sustainable agricultural development strategy toward 2030? How are the Agricultural Research Center and Muller and other national institutions addressing the food loss and waste? What next steps are needed for food loss and waste from the perspective of the government? But before we answering or go through to answer the main production are wheat, rice, cotton, beans, fruit, vegetables. Although this is a very fatal sector, the bad news here is amongst all of during the post-harvest chain or the food chain, during the handling, national base is about 25%, and the different losses percentage happened during the rice chain or the production of rice chain. Especially in the milling process, we have the village rice milling process, which the loss happened in this stage, about 20 to 30% loss happened. Also regarding the fresh products, we have a major loss happened in this stage for because of the overloading or mechanical that's a mechanical loss that happened because the overloading or something like this during the transportation. To answer the first question of how does reducing food loss and waste fit into Egypt's sustainable agricultural development towards 2030, actually reducing the losses in order to increase food availability and food security for the Egyptian population is much less costly than increasing production by expanding the production area and or productivity per acre or by increasing the imports. Actually, implementation of innovation in the agri-food chain, promoting higher quality and sustainability and competitiveness with the particular reference to smallholders. If we addressed or we achieved these 2 goals, actually this is compatible with our sustainable agriculture development, because we have in this strategy we have a state that increase in real incomes and standards of living for rural population, as well as a greater food security for the country as a whole. How the Agricultural Research Center and the Ministry of Agriculture and other institutes addressing the food losses. Actually, that could be happen or take place when we implement the post-harvest handling best practices to improve the quality of different crops, or when we form cooperative or collaboration with different stakeholders in the food chain. Because the post-harvest technology meets food and nutrition requirements of consumer, preventing post-harvest losses, improving nutrition and adding value to food products will generate jobs, reduce poverty and enhance food security and the growth of economy by improving the livelihood of people. We could implement also the new trends in the agro-industry, like the mechanical harvesting of wheat in plastic silos. This is not It's not horizontal. This is not horizontal. It's apical silos from plastics. This nutrients doesn't offer any losses, any infestation, and we can use it for once. No rodents, no moisture increase. Also, we have the mega silo project, which is implemented in Egypt actually. Also, we can increase the value addition of the food waste, especially for the fruit and vegetables via bioconversion of the biomass to biofuel or ethanol. Also, we can implement some good practices like GHP or GMP practices in the on-farm or post-harvest practices, like the here in this is a zero energy storage structure. We can implement some practices, good practice, like washing the fruit or the vegetables or cool it. We have also the effective solar drying methods that maintain the tomato losses. Also, we have lower cost small scale storage facilities that improve the cellular storage. We could also establish on farm some kind like these units that we could maintain the losses of the fruits and vegetables by storage them into this facility. We can improve the packaging material like this to prevent the mechanical loss. We need different stakeholders from different universities, academic universities, and governmental and non-governmental organizations actually, like Food Technology Research Institute, Horticulture Research Institute, Agriculture Extension and Rural Development Research, and some of the non-governmental organizations also could be collaborated to prevent losses. I must go more slow to answer the last question. What the next steps are needed to tackle with the food losses and waste from the perspective of the government? We should firstly survey the magnitude and causes of losses in quality and quantity during food chain. We should assess locally available tools and facilities for harvesting, packaging, transport, storage, processing, and marketing of each commodity. We should provide research developed to improve the quality of the product up to the international standards and to produce new products that meet consumer demands. Encouraging the development of an on-farm low-cost drying process that is able to bring down the moisture content of grains to 13% as fast as possible to reduce the losses. We should encourage the establishment of grain collection centers where farmers can outsource the drying operation to a third-party service provider, be it a farmer's cooperative or a totally private enterprise. Also, the governments should install in their silos storage facilities dryers capable of drying large quantities of grain at the region, at the specific region. Also, adequate investment and training on food losses could be drastically reduced. Encouraging the collaboration between the private and the public sector to jointly reduce food waste and share responsibility. Increasing the role of rural women in producing and processing agricultural products for domestic and global markets, and finally training farmers to be reliable food chain partners. Thank you very much.
Yeah. doesn't make any problem. So you have to.
Okay, so now we're up for our last speaker, and thank you, Amal, very much for your interesting presentation. We now have our case study, basically. Our engineer, Mohammed, from Shams. Basically, he currently serves as the Director of Quality Control and Assurance Department at Al-Shams Agro Group. And he brings over to us 17 years of experience working in the field of juice and concentrates. So it's your floor.
Good afternoon. In first, excuse me, my English is very poor. My name is Muhammad Abdurati, QC and QA Department Manager in Shams Agro Group in Ismaili. ما في مشكلة.
So I'll be doing spontaneous translation, and you can feel free to speak in Arabic if that's better.
اسمي محمد عبد العاطي، مدير الجودة والكواليتي اشورنس في مجموعة الشمس في اسماعيلية. الشركة بتعمل في مجال صناعة الفاكهة.
So Mohammed is working at the food at agro in Al-Shams Agro Industries, and they're working in the field of fruits and concentrates.
شركتنا من الشركات الكبيرة في الشرق الأوسط، مساحتها تكاد تكون 42,000 متر. عندنا كمان 4 خطوط إنتاج حديثة جدا.
It's one of the biggest companies in the Middle East, and they have 4 highly technical lines. Yes. Okay.
الساعة الإنتاجية بتاعت الشركة عندنا حوالي 60,000 طن من المركزات الفاكهة والبلب والNFC جوس. كمان عندنا خطوط إنتاج على أعلى مستوى لتعبئة الصلصة والعصير. بالإضافة إن إحنا عندنا كمان عندنا مزارع. المزارع دي حوالي 800 فدان، فيها مانجا وفيها عنب وفيها برتقان، والبرتقان ده أورجانيك. وبما إننا إحنا بنشتغل في مجال الفاكهة، فده معناه إن إحنا عندنا نوعين من الفاكهة. عندنا بالنسبة لنا المانجا أو الفاكهة اللي هي المقبولة والفاكهة المرفوضة. الفاكهة المقبولة.
So you can, so basically you can follow the slides, and he's basically speaking in Arabic, so it's just easier that way. Just feel free to speak in Arabic, yes. Yeah.
الفاكهة بالنسبة لنا الفاكهة المقبولة اللي هي بتخش على خط التصنيع مباشرة. اوكي. والفاكهة المرفوضة هي الفاكهة اللي بالنسبة لنا مش طابقة المواصفات بتاعتنا، ودي بالنسبة لنا تعتبر ويست. فهنا في نقطتين عايزين نتكلم فيهم. أولا الويست عندنا فيها حاجة اسمها ويست صلب سوليد والليكويد. الليكويد زي المية، ودي ان احنا بدأنا نعملها بروفايد وبنستعملها في الري، وقريب ان شاء الله هنشغلها في غسيل الارضيات. بالنسبه للسوليد في الويست اللي هي سكين والسيدز والبيل والفايبر، ودي كلها مش مجالنا نتكلم فيه المره دي، ممكن نتكلم فيه بعدين. لكن مشكله الفاكهه اللي هي بقى تعتبر ايتن واحنا مش عارفين نستغلها كويس، هي الفاكهه اللي بتسقط بين السيور اللي هي الطريه شويه، او ريجكتد. والريجكتد دي المفروض انها تبقى كويسه اصلا، لكن هما الموردين للاسف
Basically, Mohammed is sharing with us how the factory is managing the waste. So there are two kinds of waste within the company: liquid and solid waste. And the liquid waste, they're trying to use it into basically three kinds of usage. One of which is cleaning the factory, and other is for farming or off farming. Yes, and you may continue. I'll just.
Okay.
Yeah.
فاحنا بدأنا نحاول ان احنا نقلل الفقد في الفاكهة دي بحيث ان احنا نعظم الفائدة بالنسبة للشركة يعني. عشان كده احنا حاولنا ان احنا نعمل مواصفات خاصة، حوالي مواصفات خاصة لكل صنف من الأصناف، ان احنا عايزين خاص يعني يكون الصنف ده مطابق لمواصفات معينة خاصة بشركة عشان يبقى يقلل الفقد قدر المستطاع. بالإضافة ان احنا كمان موضوع التداول، الفاكهة للأسف الموردين بيجيبوها بتداول سيء جدا، بتبقى فوق بعضها كتير ومتروسة غلط وبقى فيها اللوز عالي جدا. فاحنا بنحاول ان احنا نقلل كتير قوي من الهاندلنج بتاع الفاكهة. الحاجة التانية الفواصل بين السيور معظمها رولات عشان الفرز وكده، فبالتالي الفواصل بين السيور بتحاول ان احنا نقللها لانها بتسقط منها الفاكهة اللي هي الطرية شوية السوفت دي، ودي كلها تعتبر ويست بالنسبة لنا. الحاجة التانية موضوع النقل من المزارع للمصنع، وبرضه في نوع من السوق شوية، لان عملية النقل بتبقى الفصل مش مرصوصة كويس، بيبقى مليانة زيادة، فصل فوق بعضها كان بيعمل لنا مشكلة كبيرة ان في طبقة كبيرة من الفاكهة بتتهري او بتتكسر، وده طبعا بالنسبة لنا مش مناسب، لان احنا مش هنقبل ده. الحاجة كمان ان احنا لازم نزود الانتاج او نشتغل باقصى طاقة ممكنة عشان نقابل البداية والنهاية لعملية التشغيل. طول ما هنقلل عملية بداية التشغيل ونهاية التشغيل في منتج جوه المواسير، بنضطر ان احنا واحنا بنهاية التشغيل احنا نزقه بمية ولا اي حاجة زي كده، فكل ده يعتبر هالك بالنسبة لنا. فاحنا عايزين ان احنا نزود قدر المستطاع الطاقة الانتاجية بحيث المصنع يشتغل 24 ساعة كاملة، ما يبقاش فيه فواصل قليلة، يعني ما يبقاش فيه تشغيل متقطع، لان ده هيأثر معانا كتير. الحاجة اللي بعد كده احيانا بيبقى الفاكهة قليلة شوية عندنا في الموسم، المفروض الخط طاقته حوالي 160 طن 150 طن مثلا، احيانا مبقاش فيها الا 20 30 طن بس، ودي تبقى مشكلة كبيرة. هل احنا نرفض وما نشتغلش خالص ولا نشغل؟ احنا بنضطر ان احنا نخزن، لان طبعا السوق طالب باللغة البلدية يعني كده، بنضطر ان احنا نخزن الفاكهة دي. الفاكهة دي لازم تخزن كويس، لازم تخزن كويس، يعني المانجا مثلا لازم تحط في ثلاجة، الرمان لا، الرمان ممكن يتحط في الجو العادي ان هو يستحمل شوية. شغل التخزين بتاعة الفاكهة اللي هي لسه مش هنشغلها مهمة جدا عشان نقلل الفقد، لان لو احنا مثلا جبنا زي الجوافة وحطيناها بره الثلاجة مثلا مش هتقعد يوم او اتنين وهتكون باظت خالص. فاحنا عشان نقلل الفقد ده بنحطها في ثلاجات. لكن بالنسبة للرمان ممكن يستحمل الحرارة شوية، ممكن يتخزن مرة او اتنين. اوكي. اوكي. انا بعتذر، انا مستوى السكر عندي شويه قليل وتعبان شويه، معلش انا جاي من سفر كمان مش مركز شويه، انا بعتذر معلش. دي صوره لمحطه الميه اللي احنا بدانا ننقي بيها الميه ونستخدمها في عمليه الري. كل ميه الصرف الصناعي ان احنا بدانا لو ننقيها، وبدل ما تبقى ويست بالنسبه لنا كليكويد استخدمناها ان احنا نستخدم بيها ري المزارع بتاعتنا. المزارع بتاعتنا اللي ورا المحطه دي على طول حوالي 800 فدان، فده اعتقد كويس او مناسب يعني. بالاضافه ان احنا الايام الجايه دي هنعمل لها عمليه تنقيه اعلى شويه، وهنستخدمها كمان في عمليه الغسيل بتاع الارضيات والحوائط او COP بصفه عامه يعني.
Basically, that's along line their factory. So this is the sewage system where they're basically the picture before was the sewage. Say again. Wastewater. Okay. Sorry. So the wastewater system. That was a very bad translation. Go back.
دي الويست ستورج تانكس، دي حوالي تانكين حوالي 100 طن، ده بنخزن فيهم اللي هي مخلفات الفاكهه والقشر والحاجات دي كلها. دي اللي بناخدها ننقلها بعربيات او حاجه زي كده وننقلها على المزارع بتاعتنا تعمل كومبوست، وفي منها بيبقى فيدنج للحيوانات وكده. دي صورة للكمبوست اللي هو بعد ما تحول اخر خلاص هو جاهز ان هو يتحط على الارض او يتسمد. دي الفاكهة اللي هي المرفوضة والويست بتاع الفاكهة. الصورتين اللي على طرف الصورة دي الفاكهة المرفوضة واللي تعتبر ويست، دي كانت المفروض تتاكل او ينفع انها تتاكل او تستخدم. اللي في النص دي هي قشر برتقال قشر رمان، وده خلاص ما ينفعش كان مستخدم بقى في اي حاجة تاني. دي بالنسبة للجوافة برضو نفس الفكرة، دي كلها لوست بالنسبة لنا لأنها مش هنقدر نشغل بيها، طبعا ده غير بتبقى المصفات، وللأسف أخضر كتير، هم لو سابوه شوية على الشجر كان هيستفيد بكلنا، لكن المزارعين أو الموردين أحيانا بيعملوا حاجات يعني مش مظبوطة شوية. شكرا.
So thank you very much. And I mean, the majority were Arabic speakers, and I apologize if you did not understand the majority of it, but yeah, hopefully you were able to follow through the slides. So yeah, that's it for presenters today, and now it's time for a discussion. So I'll open the floor to discussion, and please just raise your hand if you have a question, and you can click in front of you. So any questions to all of our speakers? And I think Eduardo is in line as well, so if you have any question, feel free. So Rasha Ramadan. Say again? Okay, yeah, I'll give you time to reflect. And I mean, we have one question and then another question here. Okay, now it's getting active. Okay, now we're going. So Rasha, you start.
Thank you, Fatma. Let me thank all the speakers and IFPRI for organizing this seminar. So I have basically 3 questions.
Rasha, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Rasha Ramadan, Assistant Professor at Faculty of Economics and Political Science, Cairo University. So my first 2 questions are for Jennifer. Jennifer, you said that we cannot reduce food loss and waste till 0%. So what do you think like the optimal minimum rate that we have to reach so it could be our objective? Another question, you said that one of the programs the FAO implementing is training for farmers. So I want to know, are farmers really interested to reduce waste in the production process? I mean, can they see the economic incentive of this and they're really motivating to follow any new instructions or practices? My third question is for Dalia and Amal, as they are representing the public sector. I would like to know if the government or all the research center are collaborating with the private sector. Like for instance, the Egyptian Food Bank, they have a lot of initiatives related reducing waste as a consumption level. So what kind of cooperation can happen between private and public sector to achieve this goal? Thank you.
Questions each. So now our next question is to Dr. Adil. Introduce yourself.
Thank you. And my background is with FAO since 40-something years, and in 1974 I was the Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations World Food Conference in Rome, which was a big conference. It was very important, so much so that not only it was attended by agricultural ministers, but even in those days Kissinger came and gave the speech of United States of America. So I want to give you an idea about a little bit from my experience. Point number 1, we were the ones in 1974 who introduced the term food security, which is such a catchy term, everyone caught it, and when we came back to Egypt, Osman Ahmad Osman, Allah yarhamu, established a food security company for his people, not for Egypt. That's another story, but you get all that with catchy terms, you know. Point number 1, in 74, when we prepared the 2 documents for the World Food Conference, we talked about post-harvest losses. Things are detailed. I love all the speeches by the speakers. They did hard work. And we had the 30% post-harvest, which is the figure that you mentioned today. So one thing, speaking as an econometrician and professor of economics at the American University in Cairo, one thing that needs to be done by FAO, whether in Rome or here, is this. In the past 40, 50 years, you need a time series analysis. What happened to post-harvest losses? Because all the time people make all these grand plans, plans, this term vision, mission, and all that, to me they are meaningless, frankly. What is important is to assess what happened. We worked a lot in something called AT 2000, agriculture towards 2000, and in Africa and so on. It is important to look in the past, do a time series analysis to see what you have achieved in post-harvest losses at the country level, at the regional level, at what. You will find that you have hardly achieved anything anyway, etc., etc. So this is an important thing, and this is really the facing of the facts. Point number 2, among one of the speeches I heard, there is a loss at the farmer's level of 5 to 20%. The farmer is a better economist than me when it comes to agriculture, and the farmer cares about his food and agriculture more than the Egyptian Minister of Agriculture from the time there was a Minister of Agriculture. All right? So this has to be revised. It has to do with the transporting, etc., etc., etc. Thirdly, in the last 10, 15 years, when you come to, has been a new trend in Egyptian agriculture. Agriculture for export. We export something of the order of $3 billion worth of agricultural goods. What Adil Bishai is suggesting is this. For the rest of the agriculture, see how they handle it for export. We now go to the best quality markets. When I was a student in Oxford in the late 60s, 70s, Egyptian oranges and so on could never be exported to England. It was a monopoly of Israel. Now they are in Selfridges and the Queen buys them in England. All right? So there has been a tremendous success in something called, which I introduced 25 years ago, agriculture for export. This group of agriculture of export are super. Let the rest of the agricultural sector in Egypt learn from them, because the people who do the marketing, if you go to Dahshur now is the season of the fasolia, the beans, which we export to the highest quality markets in the world. The people who are doing the packing in Dahshur, the villagers, among them are the people who are buying. Dahshur is just after Saqqara, you know, just see what they are doing. So there is a lot to be learned in terms of from those who would go for agriculture for export. Fourthly, I don't know if there is a representative from the Ministry of Agriculture or not. In the past, in the last 6 years, because of a lot of fawda and things like that, people have been changing a lot. But usually, I mean, one always saw on television a minister standing and saying, my agricultural policy is this. Has anyone heard it in this room? Okay, so this is a question someone needs to answer, because I want to know the agricultural policy. Because for me, for example, I have been preaching to ministers in the past that Egypt is the #1 country in the world which can grow asparagus and snow peas. Snow peas is mangiatutti in Italian, we call it, you know. These are the 2 most expensive vegetables. And when I gave a lecture in the Ministry of Agriculture 22 years ago, they said, but Dr. Bishai, no one eats it. I said, thank heavens they don't eat it. Because we always eat and eat and eat and export the residual. But the concept of agriculture for export is important. Now, asparagus and snow peas grow in this country with 0 pesticide and 0 chemical fertilizer, which means it more than meets the requirement of the European Union. So these are the things to look at. So just these are a few scattered ideas. There are many, but there is no time for it. Thank you.
There's always a lot to learn from you. Actually, Dr. Adil Bishai was my professor at AUC. There's always a lot to learn, so thank you so much for your intervention. But then we need a third question. Yes, so, yes.
Thank you everyone for the interesting presentations. My name is Ernst Schutte. I'm from the Embassy of the Netherlands, Safarat Hollanda. Are you guys also focusing on consumers, or more like educating them, or what you can do with like how can you prevent food loss on the consumer level? Because a lot of the things that are discussed here are about the transport and the whole value chain before consumption. But is the FAO also making policies to reduce it on a consumer level or after consumption? Thank you.
Start by answering these questions and then we can take another one.
Hello. Okay. So I'll start with with Dr. Rasha's question, zero waste. Yeah, it's an empirical question. It has to be studied depending on the crop, depending on the value chain. I like the example of combine harvesting for grains because it has been studied to a very precise degree, and you'll never find zero waste. And they've probably reached the limit in it's somewhere around 6-5%. So yeah, it depends on the crop, but it also it's also probably a process over time. There's we can't reduce the losses overnight, so it's probably more manageable in contexts like Egypt and where we work to set intermediate goals, and there's kind of the low-hanging fruit that we talk about in food loss and waste reduction. So once we grab that, then we can work more focused on the next percentage. So, but that's I think that's a challenge for everyone in the room to help us to answer. Are farmers interested to reduce waste? Are they willing to adopt practices? From my experience, yes, but I have to say that my experience is very limited in Egypt working with farmers. But they are. If we can convince them that there's an upgrade to their product, or a different way of farming, or a different way of selling that will bring better income, better revenue for them, then they're interested. But we have to prove it. We have to show it. So it's not enough to tell them, well, this is a better practice and this is a better practice, and we'll train you, and I think we have to go a step further and really show them, which takes investment and time, and it takes absorbing the risk of trial and error also. That maybe people like we can do in FAO and through our projects is absorb that risk, but we have to be aware that they won't. Yeah. So yeah, I think that, did I catch all of your questions? And then for the consumer level, absolutely. This is a huge omission from my presentation. And it's probably a topic for another session. I suggested this to IFPRI, that we get together and talk about food waste. There's some excellent work being done in Egypt by the Egyptian Food Bank. There are some deeply rooted, I'm sure everyone in this room knows, deeply rooted consumption habits and traditions in Egypt and in the region, related to religious festivals, related to cultural traditions around weddings and hospitality. And so it's a really deep topic, but the broader issue, food waste and responsible consumption is such an interesting topic that I think we need to delve into more. FAO has been working in a few different areas. For example, guidelines for use and reuse of wasted food. So this is kind of the model of the Egyptian Food Bank. They work with hotels or catering industry to bring the unused food, the uneaten food, and distribute it within a very short time frame to needy people. This takes takes very close supervision and framework in terms of food safety, very sophisticated logistics. So they're doing a very good job, but to scale this up and out takes work. So I know my colleagues in headquarters are working on this. They're also developing tools for education, for primary school and secondary school, packages they can use for students and for children. And these, we realize, I think my colleagues in the room would agree, we need to adapt them to the local context, and what works for kids in a different country that FAO works and won't necessarily work for in Egypt. But this is a fascinating area of future work, I'd say. Yeah. Thank you.
So we had 2 questions here. So yes, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Ahmed Khurshid. I am a food technologist, and I used to be the agriculture counselor of Egypt, United States, some years ago. In few words, I am against minimizing or I wanted to forget about losses, because conditions in Egypt now are, as you know, increasing population and limitation in cultivated land, and how about the future? So we want to stop losses. We want to have no losses. The knowledge of the people is far from that. Let me tell you a few samples or examples. Bread is subsidized. heavily subsidized by the government. You know, for $1, how many loaves you can buy? 350 loaves. Okay? Exactly 350 loaves for $1. So the low-income people, I myself, I did this trial and I found they are throwing away some loaves every day. And I asked them why you are doing that. It doesn't matter for me. I am buying for £1 20 loaves. It doesn't matter if I will throw away two pieces or something like that. I did calculate if every person in Egypt will throw a small piece of bread, 1/10 of the loaf. You know, in 1 year, the cost of this piece of bread close to £2 million. So, not reducing, stopping losses is a must in Egypt. But what we are saying today, we said it many years ago. The same, nothing new. We want to have a model or a trial to solve this problem. You mentioned the farmer. The farmer in the past, forget about losses. He used to grow his grains and store it at home or in his village, mill it in his village, and bake at home with no losses. You know, the bread in villages, how it is. Its nutritive value is excellent. They used corn and fenugreek, which is something great from the nutritional point of view. He did that. So I have an idea, why not the village can be as in the past, but a new system with the technology to depend on themselves. In few words, let us work practically on this point, how to make losses zero, because it is a must. And I have to understand that, because many people didn't understand, as this person, he said, for £1, it is subsidy from the government.
Yes.
But he didn't understand that this bread, the cost of this loaf of bread is very high. He didn't understand that.
Thank you
So
very
let
much.
us
Yes.
make model for that, and
Definitely.
because it is a must. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you took note of that. And then the next question.
Thank you. I'm Habiba Hassan Wasif, formerly of WHO, and actually an independent expert in food and nutrition policy and development. And I work a lot, I'm an independent expert to the European Commission in food and health. And I have a lot of work with them in Africa in the strategic partnership on food and nutrition security and sustainable agriculture, where we made together the plan and now we're monitoring the implementation. Aspects of application of the methodology in Egypt. What the new methodology? That's a question for ARC and to FAO. The other thing is what in all the solutions and approaches you presented, what the question of sustainability, can they be sustained? And if I talk about sustainability of our agriculture, are agricultural systems, food production systems in Egypt sustainable? Or are we working out overcharging the land?
Activity to establish a monitoring and evaluation unit in order to serve the sustainability of the activity. And because I think this is one of the big challenges to tackle this problem, because the data is very important and it's divided between the producers and the traders and the processors, and this is one of the main problems that they would face. Also, I'd like to ask one simple question: difference between food loss and food waste.
So this is also considered as losses, not because you lost it, but losses from the beginning.
Thank you for your intervention. Jennifer, you want to address any of the questions or? Yes, please do, yes.
Just some brief remarks over the questions that came up in the comments. Starting with the last one, the lack, let's say, the not achieving the attainable yields because the seeds are not the right, or because some factor is not allowed to produce the maximum yield of crops or maximum yield of milk production.
I'm losing a lot.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. For the sake of measurement, I don't entirely agree with you, but for the sake of tackling the issue, I agree. And I'll even add to that. We can't basically talk about reducing food loss, preventing a degradation.
A really, really good seminar. In fact, I think it presents the idea of bridging research to policy with the discussion and the questions that are going along between the researchers and the government representatives and the private sector as well. So this presented a very good, actually